welcome to a special edition of Minot Talk today. There's obviously some big topics that are going around Minot right now.
There has been. It's been a busy weekend. We're here on a Monday, so clearly something's going on.
Yeah. So to lead the way, tonight is City Council meeting, and one of the big topics that are going to be at City Council meeting is this liquor license cap. That
something that we've been covering at least indirectly for the last year now.
Right. And last City Council meeting, there was some proposals that were brought to the table for paths forward. And so we have with us the owner of Sports on Tap, Tony Mueller, to kind of talk about the liquor license caps and how it affects bar owners, whether it's in place or whether it would be potentially removed. So first off, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This is cool to be here. Like I told you before we got started that I'm a fan and I watch a lot of these episodes, and I think it's cool for the city of Minot that we got a platform like this that we can kind of stay informed on the new avenue that everybody's kind of consuming, the podcast, and
right.
Yeah, it's really cool. So
appreciate that.
No, absolutely appreciate this. So first off, before we jump into all the nuances of this, because there's going to be a lot, kind of obviously you're the owner of Sports on Tap, but kind of just break down as much of that story as you want of how you don't have to go all the way back to the first day that you got involved in Sports on Tap. But what is Sports on Tap? We know it's the icon of Minot, the rooftop bar and all that. Yeah. But kind of break it down for us.
So kind of a family business. Like I was saying to you guys before, I think we opened up in 2004, and this cap discussion was talked about then. I remember my dad telling me about the struggles that they went through to get there, as they had to wait and purchase. I believe it was Serendipity, the bar Serendipity on South Hill. Yeah. We purchased our license through. So similar things, 21 years. We just turned 20. We had our 20th anniversary last summer. But yeah, it's wild, the changes that Minot has gone through, that we've gone through, and we're still kind of having these same type of discussions, and maybe that's why that this is at the forefront right now. But yeah, it's it's a sports bar, by day, kind of a nightclub, dance party theme at night. We try to say that we can offer and be whatever you want it to be. You don't have to be there late night partying. You can be there, during the day, watch a game, happy hour. We really have a nice advantage with the liquor license that we have, having Planet Pizza right next door. We're basically the same business. You can get pizza, wings. So yeah, it's a nice spot to kind of do whatever you want to do as far as what you're looking to do. So yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned something there with the liquor license we have. That's when you jump into the whole ordinance that is established by the city. There's several different liquor licenses out there. There's a lot of nuance just to that part alone, but there's one specifically that is capped, and it's capped based off of the amount of population that is established by the census in Minot, and so that kind of restricts it at one liquor license per 1,500 people in Minot. That's the way it's been for a long time. And just if this doesn't come up, is this something that you guys as bar owners, as a bar owner, were frustrated with the fact that the limited supply of liquor license that you could get? Or is this something that, hey, we accept it, it's part of business, and we understand how this works, and there's ways to get around it?
Yeah, I mean,
or through
I could talk about that kind of open-ended type of question for a while. Like, first thing I want to say about our license, and I feel like there's maybe a misunderstanding or misconception about how we maybe have some advantage. I want to get this out there as clearly as I can. We serve a smaller selection of goods with just alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, you can serve other stuff to a smaller selection of the population.
Yeah.
Right, 21 and up.
Right.
On a smaller number of hours per day, because we technically a restaurant can be open 24 hours.
Yeah.
We have to close it 2:00 or whatever. You got to be open at a certain time. And we're the ones this license type is the one that's that's on the chopping block. So just off the jump there, it's like, that's kind of how some of us feel. It's like, what advantage do we have? We had to pay this premium to get into this business, to obtain this type of license. We didn't, you hear like Good Old Boys Club and all these type of statements. Like, these laws were around before our time and
decades at this point.
Yeah, decades. And I've really done a lot of, research into looking at other communities. There's either a high barrier of entry financially, or there is a cap. I mean, I'm talking even other states. Yeah. It's everywhere. So, You probably, when you're wanting to open a bar, which I probably wouldn't recommend because it's not all sunshine and roses like people think it is. Let me tell you,
it's not Cheers every day.
I think you just come to the tap and if you see me running around dirty, sweaty, gross, like it's fixing toilets, fixing, having to go down to the kitchen, busting tables, like it's really not
cleaning things you don't want to clean.
It's not as glamorous as people make it out to be, but yeah, I think that if you were trying to get into it, you'd probably be frustrated with the cap situation. But once you're into it, you're like, man, this is it's really not all it's cracked up to be. Like I said, we have a much smaller selection. And when 20 years ago when Sports on Tap opened, there was a heck of a lot less supper clubs that were in town. Like,
sure.
You remember growing up here, it was like Applebee's. You go to Applebee's, and you had that like kind of supper club feel, that bar restaurant type of feel. Now, if a couple guys after golf want to just get a beer, there's a million options of these supper club, sports bar themed type places. Whereas back in the day, when we obtained our liquor license, you had a little bit less of an option. If you did want to go get a beer with your buddy or whatever, the chances you were going to go to one of our places, a retail liquor license, were much higher than they are today. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. Do you have a question?
I was just going to say those places were a lot more limited back then.
They were.
It was more of a statement at that point.
And, and I don't think nothing changed with the laws. People just kind of came in, and Minot grew a little bit over the last 15-ish years. We're stagnant now.
Yeah, for the last 10 years.
Like you said, the licenses are capped at one for every 1,500 people. And the other thing, quickly off the top, that comes to mind is that we've all been on the internet. We all see people. I complimented you guys earlier about being Minot and highlighting Minot, which I love. But you never hear people say that we need more bars in town. You know what I mean? They say we need this type of restaurant or this type of thing for kids.
Right.
Everyone wants Chick-fil-A.
I wouldn't mind Chick-fil-A either, yeah. But yeah, you never hear people saying that, we need another bar. It's like if there's a new construction anywhere happening, it's like, is that going to be a car wash or a bar?
Right.
It's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you did want to start a new bar in Minot, then basically what the process would be is right now it's been documented. There's 3 bars that are up for sale. The process would be going to one of those bars and saying, hey, would you be interested in selling the liquor license and not the bar or something like that, correct? Is that kind of how that process works?
You either have to buy the bar outright or the liquor license separately from them.
And and I get the other side of the argument. It is a difficult process because, a lot of these places that are for sale or not for sale don't want to sell their license.
Okay.
They want to sell,
the whole thing.
The whole thing. They want to sell their property if they own the property. And sell it all together, which was, again, part of the reason that people held these for so long and that they viewed them as assets, whether a lawyer here or there disagrees or not. They viewed them as assets, and they've been bought and sold as assets for a long time. So, it would be a difficult process. The other thing that I've noticed digging into this over the last couple of years is that we kind of have a weird idea of what a bar is in Minot, in my opinion, maybe in North Dakota. Like, this is essentially a nightclub license. Like,
sure.
Okay.
Even the places that I go into Minneapolis, like you all go, if you live in North Dakota, you go to Minneapolis for a game or a concert.
Yeah.
And you go to these bars before or after the game. And I went to this one bar, and everybody was there with jerseys on and stuff. And you think it's like what people think Sports on Tap is, like a 21 and up nightclub. No, we went there before the game, and there was high chairs that were pulled out, and there's bars across America, in my opinion. And again, I've delved into this a little bit more than I ever thought I would. Have food. Most bars have food, offer food. Other states, Wisconsin, I think maybe Montana, you can have kids in there. Like, there's different laws in different states, and for a lot of bars offer food, and this is a strictly 21 and up place where you can go get a whiskey. Like, I don't know, does Minot need more places where 21-year-olds can go get whiskey?
Right.
And the argument is like free market, and we can get into that.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's funny how your perspective gets changed by what you grew up around or what you've been around. But you go to other places in other cities, and there's kids in bars and there's food in bars. So
that's the thing. That's a great point. You do see that in a lot of places, Minnesota especially. I remember being a kid going into a bar with my mom, and it was mind blowing at that point. But that's something. Do you think that's something just quickly North Dakota could look towards, maybe moving towards?
I do. We've looked into it ourselves. Like, people have came up from I think Moorhead. I don't know exactly what the laws are like in Minnesota, but there's been lots of confusion. People coming in from out of town to Minot, walking straight into Sports on Tap with like a gaggle of 5, 6, 7-year-olds, and they're like, I'm like, we're sorry, you can't be in here, and they're like, for one, they're upset because they want to go up there. It looks cool, and they want to be outside. It's summer in North Dakota, and they're like, why? I'm like, that's the way our licenses are structured here. But there is even like a little bit of a question on that, like, because I'm not 100% sure. I should be more sure, but I think if we switched a few things up, that we might even be able to like allow, per the Century Code in North Dakota, allow kids in our bar if they're with their parent and if they are a certain number of time before a certain time of the day. I think I could be wrong. But again, like just trying to read the Minot ordinance, and then we looked at the Grand Forks and the Fargo, and then you have the Century Code on top of that. It's like, where does it overlap and where doesn't? And I'm just a pizza guy bar owner, so like all that legal speak on those pages, I have to read one like 3 times to actually obtain it. So yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So you mentioned free market, and this is something that is interesting. It's a strong argument. But you also mentioned something else, that you, as a bar, you're also prohibited on, you can't stay open 24 hours.
Right.
You can't do things. So already there's this different class that's set for bars just out of the gate, right? Could we agree on that?
Yeah.
Like, you guys are treated differently because of, and so is this something where getting away from the cap and the free market and the barriers to entry and all this, is this something where do you feel that bars should be monitored differently, where there should be a higher approval process, there should be a higher barrier to entry just because of the nature of what you're doing? Or should we also get rid of the 2 p.m. deal, get rid of caps, get rid of 2 a.m. and have 24-hour bars? Like,
it's a good question, and I think that it tracks in this conversation. I asked to kind of pivot, and I'll try to come back. I asked when the liquor committee was formed, I stood up there and asked a question like, why are we talking about this? Like, what is the reason that we are having this committee is formed and we're having these conversations? And I got some sort of free market answer. Basically, they said that the mayor at the time, apparently out of his own free will or whatever, just wanted to have this conversation or start this conversation. And that alone was kind of, and then they pivoted and said that, it was about free markets and being open for business and Minot open for business and all that stuff. But still, it didn't really necessarily track, because 5 years ago or 4 years ago at that time, the city had just put 4 licenses up for sale based on the 2020 census.
Sure. Yep.
And our population grew, so 4 licenses were going to come for sale. And they set the minimum at $100,000 for the bid.
Yeah.
So that is if I was one of those places, I know one of them was Target, so they're probably not too concerned about the doings of Minot. But if I was one of those other 3 and I did pony up the over $100,000 for it, and 4 or 5 years later, we're talking about getting rid of it altogether, and no compensation. And I understand the taxpayers don't want this compensation, and I totally understand their point of view. But man, talk about a knife in the back. For lack of a better term. And even for the places that have been around a long time. So your question was,
basically, it's free. We're talking free market here, but there's some special limitations that are put on bars already.
Yeah, exactly. So,
should the bars be policed as heavily as? And police might not be the great word.
I think they should be. And I'll be the first to admit, I got a little 10% piece of ownership. I think it was barely 22, and I don't know if I probably should have. I was in over my head. It was way more as far as you name the aspect of business. It was more than I realized. And obviously my responsibilities and ownership grew over the years. But I really had to learn on the fly. So I do think this is a federally regulated substance. And I've seen some terrible things that have resulted in people, over consuming, and we've made our fair share of mistakes. I really do feel like now we really kind of have it figured out about, all things, consumption based and where the line is and following all the laws. Like I said earlier, there's a lot to that you're actually responsible for that I don't know if you realize that you are.
Wow.
So yeah, if the argument is open for business and free market, I think one of the people on the liquor committee answered me with, why is there a cap on liquor licenses, but there's not a cap on ice cream shops? It's the same thing. It's not the same thing.
Right.
It's not the same thing. You remotely close. There's
not.
caps or there's high barriers of entry across the country, not just the state or the country, and they're there for a reason. It's not just I've talked to so many bar owners. We're not scared of competition.
Right.
We're not. We compete with each other already. We compete with these supper clubs all the time that are way more there now. So it's not like an ice cream shop. And if we want to go down the route of, that we're not, there should be no caps or whatever, then all right, then we should be able to be open 24 hours. And we should be able to, have the same restrictions or lack thereof as all these other places that don't serve alcohol. It's a federally regulated substance. There's the ATF is an organization. It's the first,
the A is for alcohol.
The A is for alcohol. So, it's somewhere in the middle, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah. Nobody wants, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but probably a very small portion of people want bars to be open 24 hours. Right. So then we get that in place, but then the caps, I don't see how you can have both. I guess if free market is your driving deal, and that's probably controversial to some.
Yeah.
But
if it's free market, then let's open it up all the way to kids and I mean, you can argue this conversation has been blowing up online. I saw Paul Pittner made a post, a video, and we watched that, and there's been Facebook posts, and it's been crazy. So everybody's perspective is kind of adapting and changing as they get more information one way or another.
Right.
Yeah.
I can tell you mine has over the last.
And that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I watched the last 2 episodes, and you guys kind of touched on this one episode a little bit, the last one I think a little bit longer. And you guys' own kind of views have kind of evolved on it as you start thinking the process through a little bit more too, which is interesting to see from you guys aren't invested in it, So
I want to talk about, because we've kind of created the big picture. We're going to talk now specifically how it's going to affect you guys, but personally, like, I'm a free market guy. Like, I am into that 1,000%. And even with the daycare situation, I've been free market. Like, we're talking about giving beyond the nonprofit tax cuts, trying to give a property tax break to every daycare. And like, I understand that, but I'm totally free market on this. And so there's been that problem that has come in, and then you have this, and I'm just like, well, I want to be free market on this as well. But then I get into the deal of, well, we're talking about alcohol here. We're talking about something this is not just a free market issue. And you and I have gone back and forth on that, and I've talked with some of them, like, yeah, it is free market. We should get rid of the 2 a.m. deal. We should just let them be. And eventually there'll be bar owners that are like, we don't want to deal with people at 5 a.m. in the morning. Right. So we're just going to shut down, and free market's going to take care of some of those problems. And so there's a lot to this topic.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 a.m. thing, like
that was big when that even happened a few years back.
That was huge. Yeah. I didn't even know what was happening, and I feel like I'm stay pretty involved
connected
and keep my ear to the ground. And then I think I was like gonna go somewhere. I was in the airport or something, and somebody called me and said, "Oh, you can stay open till 2 a.m. tonight." And I was like, "What?"
What are you talking?
The other misconception on that, and I think both of those kind of items, the cap and the 2 a.m., being open for business is one thing, but if you're like, the pie is the pie, and I've said this before too, like, if a certain bar has a huge night, all the other bar owners hear about it and know about it. You're slower, they're slower, whatever. Yeah. And it's 2 a.m. isn't going to make bars more money. People just go out later. Everybody has the same amount of money to spend at places like this. Right. People don't have to go out to bars and restaurants. They can cook, they can grab a 6-pack, they can not drink. You don't have to patronize any of these businesses. So it's, the free market would, I guess the argument for that would be, there'll be more choices and people could get into the business if they want to, but it's definitely not going to create any more tax revenue because the money is the pie is the pie.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And on that same note, it's not like more people are going to magically show up to start spending money on bars.
No, they're just going to take from this or take from that. And again, that's the free market argument that, let the strong survive. And to a certain extent, I agree with that. But when we had to pay to play, it makes it hard to stay on that free market vibe there.
Because so much of it is, should this be in effect or not? But to this point, it has been for decades, and we're at where we're at right now.
Right.
You have to deal with the facts as they are, and you guys have all bought into it at this point.
Right.
So we have to go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you guys having to buy in. So you've had to buy in. Every other bar owner has had to buy in, except the ones that have been annexed into the city. And so basically, what we're talking about is two main proposals on the table.
Yeah.
One of them would be no compensation and just creating a very high barrier to entry, which is basically what the barrier to entry is right now. It's $100,000 to $150,000. That would be that option 3 that was presented. And option 4 would be creating a lower barrier to entry, but then compensating all the existing bar owners, basically trying to get a total value of $125,000 to them over 20 years, giving them immediately $25,000, and then waiving your guys' fees, your annual fee for the next 20 years.
Or, of course, remove the cap with no
Right.
compensation.
There's the first two of them. Yeah. For the first two are is keep it in place, or and the second one's remove the cap with no, just remove the cap.
The first option happens, this whole conversation feels pointless, but
So
that's a different story.
So basically, if this is to happen, if option 3, well, let's just start out. If option 3 or 4 are to happen, where the cap is removed, how does this affect? From your consensus, is this something that you guys want? Basically, let's start there. Is this something that would be good for your guys' business, or is this something that would be bad? Is it simply a business decision that you guys are coming from? Where does your viewpoint come on this topic?
Yeah, no, we're status quo is what we are looking for, obviously, and I'm sure lots of people don't want to hear that. Like you said just a second ago, if is option 1 status quo, keep the same.
Yeah, that's
and
the
you
status
said
quo.
this conversation would be pointless.
Like
Not to me, it wouldn't be.
Well, no.
I'm just kidding,
But
man.
no, it's why, if that was the main idea, why would no one would be doing this at this stage?
Right. No, I was trying to make a
No,
joke.
you're
but-
good.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
But yeah, I think out of the two proposals, I think it was Mr. Black's proposal
is option 3.
was the one that tracks more to me. If I had to pick one,
Right.
The Pittner proposal, again, I've delved into this. There's no community that I found, and somebody can correct me and send me a link or whatever if I'm wrong, that a city comparable to Minot would have basically you can get a license for free. Basically, I mean, if you're going to invest a bar at $5,000,
it's nothing.
It's nothing. So it's a rounding error and at the most.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the proposal number 3, if I'm correct, is it would be the better option if the council was going to make a change. But again, yeah, I mean it's bars would feel it. Bars are. I just got done talking this last week to not my salesperson, but like sales manager for a couple of the liquor distributors, and they are changing their routes to, like, I think half of the routes, like the biggest company in North Dakota that has the most products, they are going to bi-weekly deliveries for half of their accounts.
Wow. They're already cutting back.
Yeah, they're already cutting back. Like, again, I said it kind of at the top, like it's not, basically if 1 to 10 bars open up, everybody's going to feel it. And it will be difficult for all the bars that are current to stay alive, and it'll be difficult for the places that open because people have their places that they like to go already. So it obviously, like I said, we like the system the way it is, but as far as like looking at other communities and seeing how other places handle their liquor licenses, number 3 seems to be more common with what other people do. Grand Forks and Fargo, we chatted a little bit about before this happened. They don't have a cap, but they have a high barrier of entry. It's either one of the two. You have a high barrier of entry financially, I guess, or you have a capped system. Bismarck, somebody from the bar owner committee that we've been chatting about reached out to the city of Bismarck, and they said that they have a cap and they have no plans on removing it.
Right.
Sometimes I think about like Minot and Bismarck. Bismarck seems to be growing, and it's everybody loves Bismarck if you live in Minot.
Yeah.
I'm a Minot guy, so whatever.
Right.
But we went to the 2 a.m. and they're still at 1 a.m. and now we're trying to do this, and Bismarck's like, we have no plans on doing that. Little old Minot is a little bit more. I don't want to say progressive, or tries to be than the big, beautiful capital city of Bismarck down the road. So,
right.
I don't know. I go back to the 2 a.m. thing.
Yeah.
I liked it, obviously. Like, we should be able to be open whenever we want,
Yeah.
you know? But it doesn't help me being a normal person any better, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Then the nights just start later and end later, and my days start later. So,
Right.
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the council says tonight. To real quick say about what something Pittner said in his
live video.
His live video, he said that he'd probably make a motion to table, which I think would be nice. So there isn't a vote right off the jump.
Yeah.
And we could kind of get a little bit more of a sense of what the council is how they're feeling and what's going to end up
even find maybe a fifth option that hybridizes some stuff come together or something. Yeah.
Or tweak one of the options that is there. Yeah.
So I want to talk about if there should have been a fifth option, but before we do that, in your group, there's obviously this is viewed as an asset to you guys, right?
Yeah.
That's the feedback we're getting. Is this is not just a license that you apply for and whatever. This is actually like a asset on potentially even maybe on a balance sheet at a bank.
Sure.
It's concerned. Has there been much conversation about amongst your group or whatever about whether banks are going to be calling loans, anything like that would happen if this got passed and there was no longer a cap and the value is gone?
I don't think so. Depends on who you talk to. Some people say it's an asset. Some people say it's not.
Okay.
Legally, I don't want to speak like if it is or if it isn't. But I don't think that, that anybody would have anything to worry about as far as their lender is concerned.
Okay.
But the big thing that people value these at is, especially smaller bars that really had to man up or whatever you want to say and to pay this fee. Like this is their I don't want to say retirement, but this is their way out.
Exit strategy.
Exit strategy, exactly. You take away this value, whether it's $100,000. I mean, you could sell it for $75,000 if you wanted to sell. You can sell it for whatever somebody's willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's the big thing that I think a lot of people are concerned about. Is just like, I have this nice little small, 40-person bar, but it's probably not worth a whole heck of a lot. Maybe it's kind of been the same forever. We used to smoke in it. You know what I mean? It's run down. Bars get beat the heck out of. But these, and a lot of these bar owners that we know that they're a little bit older in their careers, they've been doing this a long time. They have this little thing that they know that they'll be able to sell, or they did know that they'll be able to sell. Mm-hmm. And, the next person comes in just like we did with, I think it was Bell Lundeen. We bought his and he retired and and then he had that asset, but I don't know necessarily on a bank's balance sheet.
Right. Yeah.
If it's a true asset.
Yeah.
But it sure is to a lot of us owners.
I mean, if you're going to start a bar, that's going to be something you're going to have to, unless if you just have 100. I mean, so when the last bids, some of them went close for 200,000, close to 200,000.
Yeah.
We've heard people say that they went up for
400. I've heard rumors of.
Yeah.
Right. The thing, there's not a whole lot of bars in town that are super new or probably have crazy big loans. But that's another thing that I wanted to touch on quickly was that, for us, the $150,000 valuation of the liquor license is important, but it's also like, I look at myself and I look at Adam Hoffman, a good friend of mine who owns the original.
Sure.
Would he have and would I have made this crazy investment? We took a pretty sizable loan out to build our rooftop.
Without a doubt.
To add to the city of Minot, which I really think it has.
Right.
And Adam, tore down his whole old building.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure banks were involved in that. You know what I mean?
Shocking if they
I know
weren't.
the profit margin, it'd be tough to pay for that in cash. And just speaking for myself, that we really took a risk and took a leap into the city for the next, multiple years. I don't know if I would have done it. I don't know if I would have built Sports on Top if I would have known 5 years later that $5,000 for a liquor license, everybody can have one.
Yeah.
I mean,
it becomes easy to replicate.
Yeah, I mean, it does. And there's a lot of people that are doing really cool stuff downtown and all over the place.
Yeah.
And to $5,000 to throw a bar in there, that's another reason why I think there are barriers of entry to just places that serve alcohol, because it's way cheaper to get into one than it is to do a bar restaurant or a bar grill with food. The hoods and the ovens and the small wares and
you
all
have
that
much more overhead now.
Yeah, like a bar, you need a counter and you need some refrigeration, some plumbing, which a lot of these commercial spaces have.
Yep.
And you can get open pretty quickly.
Right.
So yeah, that's my one thing that and I've read Facebook comments and people are saying the rules change, deal with it, and
right.
I understand that too, but man, if I put myself in my position in 2018, 2019 to take this huge risk, I mean, the rooftop is a serious risk. I mean, it's seasonal, it's seasonal and it's big. We didn't make some small little patio.
Yeah, it's the roof.
I really don't know if we would have done it if I would have, had the foresight or whatever to know that in 5 years that the cap's going to be gone away. And I don't think Adam probably would have done that either. I mean, you'd almost be dumb to do it that way.
Right.
Which is, maybe people will sympathize with that point. Maybe they won't. But for me, it's like I'm laying in bed thinking like, maybe the top wasn't a good idea all of a sudden. Like, man.
We're going to go through the Facebook comments here in a minute, but one thing to consider for this as well is we talk about Minot being open for business, and that's great. And I'm for that. That's something that we've pushed. We're behind. But also in that, we have to be careful that we don't go and hurt the ones that have invested in Minot along the way. And there needs to be an understanding. That doesn't mean that we say no to every big box store, because we're going to protect people that have invested in Minot that way. So we stay small. We're going to there's going to be some growing pains. But if people feel like if we invest in Minot, the rules could change, then all of a sudden they're going to question whether or not they want to invest. And even Target, they go big box store, they can lose a $200K, they can be all right, whatever. That's nothing to them. But what's the incentive to keep investing in Minot if the rules will change after we're just trying to take their money? Like, they also have feelings. They also have stuff that they're looking at. I think that's something that needs to be considered. Some of the comments, Silas Sneed says, I'm a little late to the convo. Have you guys discussed potential safety risk increases and there already being a short of law enforcement? That's a great point that we will get to. Paul Strickland, they considered that blue sky when I had my license. That's talking about the bank's view of the liquor license. And Miranda Schuler, this conversation and topic occurred back in 2016-ish as well. Proof that so many of these items keep coming up, but prior conversations and work done is overlooked. And that is That's something that hopefully things like this can help with to keep those conversations
at least on the record.
On the record,
better,
and better tracked, because it does seem like they just go away. Like, raising the rates for the mayor and city council. All right, but let's jump into this one from
that
Silas.
Law enforcement point. Yeah,
this is something that we wanted to talk about. So if we go and we have this, we already have a police shortage. They were 15. It varies, but just around 15 officers short. Obviously, nobody wants the police call to their establishment, but there's a chance for more bars, means there's a greater chance for DUIs, just unexpected happenings taking place, things like that. Is this something that has come up in your guys' conversations as well? Obviously, that's probably not something that you love talking about right there, but is this a point that has come up as well?
Yeah, we've worked really hard. It was kind of rowdy at Sports on Tap, and I think people still have that perception still to this day. But 10 years ago or so, we were calling the cops way too much.
Yeah,
we really had to learn on the fly. That was when Minot was really growing and the oil boom, and there was people from all over the country coming up here. It was wild. Which is like, on one hand, people want to come to your spot that are completely different than the next person. And it's a good thing, But we've really had to figure it out and figure out what works and what doesn't work about safety and all the protocols. And now people complain about, there being a little too much security or what have you.
Right.
But on the other hand, girls have said to me, girls that I've hired or whatever, they say, we like coming here because we feel safe. So,
that's awesome.
It's the ups and downs of going through business. But this one's a little tough for me. I think that the only thing that I would say about the police in general would just be, a little bit more. There's more places to check. There's just, instead of like maybe there being a big crowd here, and here, there could be, half of that on 6 places instead of 3, which, spreads them out further. But again, in my opinion, it kind of goes back to the same thing as, this isn't going to generate any new tax revenue.
Right.
It's just the same amount of people are going to be spending the same amount of dollars roughly.
Okay.
They might be just going to different places. So
yes, that's a key point.
Yes and no, though.
Right. Yeah,
that's fair.
The one thing to counter that is, if I started a bar, which I have no plans to, and I most likely never will in my life, but if I did,
good idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't know the rules. I wouldn't know you've been in this industry for 20 years, and you're learning about not learning, but you're saying 10 years ago there was a growing pains that you guys had. Well, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be going through those growing pains if there's more that are starting. So you would have a chance of several bars needing the police called.
Yeah. And we were, operating as, when those problems were happening, we're operating as basically a nightclub. We're not sports on tap. You think it's a sports bar, whatever. So every bar that opens up, it can be a nice little speakeasy, hole in the wall, small little joint.
Right.
That, but yeah, that's something that could arise if places open up and then oh, wait a minute. There is no test you have to take.
Right.
You go through the background check and you get approved to hold this liquor license. But yeah, there's no test or anything like that. And man, there is a lot.
It's on you to figure out all of those little nuances and minutia that goes into it.
There's a lot for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Paul says, and this is kind of what you've already alluded to, the pie can only be divided so many times. It's still the pie. Yep. So this isn't if anything, we're losing revenue as a city because a liquor license won't sell before 100K anymore. Not that it should in the first place, but if anything, you're losing revenue, and the problems arise. So overall, I think we're coming to the end. There might be something you have, but if not, what are some? Is there any questions you have?
I was just going to say, sweet. I think we've covered it. But if you guys could have a say in how this were to proceed going forward, you would just rather see it as status quo, not change anything, keep the cap as is.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, and to add to that, because I mentioned this earlier, should there be a fifth option that just says, hey, maybe we should adjust what the proportion is ratio, one license per 1,000 people.
Right, drop it by 500 people. Again, I still think that the same people, when I asked the liquor committee what the reason was, they gave me their answer. I didn't necessarily, I'm not calling anybody a liar, but I didn't necessarily believe it. Maybe they just, lie by omission. I'm not saying anybody's lying, but in my opinion, and I think in most of us bar owners' opinion, that there was, and I think this happened in 2016, and you'd have to be kind of ignorant almost to not think this, that the mayor didn't just sit there one day and say, hey, let's put a liquor committee together. Yeah. People got in his ear. Right. Certain people. People have been named online. Who knows? I have no idea who it was and who it wasn't. Certain people have denied that they want to do this, and I don't really care who it is or who it isn't. But I'll never be convinced otherwise that the mayor just one day put this liquor committee together with these certain people, business owners, property owners, and I understand their gripe or whatever. Yeah. They got in his ear and they said, hey, let's relook at this and let's start this process of like we did in 2016 all over again. We would like the status quo, but I do think that there is some sort of, and I don't want to discredit the liquor committee because they met and they did good work and they did hear us out. But yeah, the first right of refusal, in my opinion, I think is a good option, where I think that was involved in Kevin Black's proposal. If somebody comes to the city looking to purchase wanting a liquor license, then they give them our names and numbers or whatever, or the people that maybe we can contact the city if we are open to selling first, and then they don't have to get a list of 30 names. A list of 30 names. And then, you have that option to sell it or to buy it from one of the license holders. And then if not, then again, in Black's proposal, then it's set at a number that you can buy it from. But I don't know what other reasons bar owners would have that they wouldn't like that, other than just keeping the status quo, which is again what I would prefer, and I think all of us would prefer. Yeah. But yeah, there is some things that I think can be tweaked and to make it work for everybody, so this doesn't keep coming back up. Because no matter what happens here, apparently, even if we get rid of the cap, I don't know, in 5 years we get a different group of leaders up there, and maybe me and my other bar owners, we go and lobby to change it back. I don't know what I mean. If it can be changed now, can it change back? So who knows if this will ever be a fixed issue as far as the city goes. Right. No, that's a great point. Yeah, great question, great point. Absolutely. Well, I think that's all I have. Tonight, 5:30 p.m. City Council chambers. Tonight, you can show up. Practice here. Sorry to interrupt you. You're right. Yeah, hopefully, I know what some people are planning on going, or bar owners are planning on going and speaking, and sometimes they get a little long, and it's going to be interesting to see how this one goes. But I appreciate you guys having me on and let me share my/our perspective. It's tough speaking for a group of bar owners. Like, I don't want to say the wrong thing or be misconstrued in any way. But I think for the most part, we're on the same page. It's funny because we we compete with each other. You know, we're not the best of friends, all of us. And this came together in 2016, and then we started. I got to be, like I mentioned, Adam from the O. We got to be we're like best buddies now.
Yeah.
So it's funny, we're all together now, and then this will go away in a couple of years, and then we'll all be trying to close that other place.
One up each other
street.
again.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some hidden good things that have come out of all this for sure.
Yeah. You're gonna have like a food truck at City Council tonight, so that way it's gonna be a long one.
Yeah,
people are gonna be.
That's a move. Anyone's out there
needs to do that. Yeah.
City Council gets over at like 9:30 tonight. Everyone wanders out. It'll be a blast.
I'd be there halfway through at the food truck. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. It's been a good conversation.
Great.
Obviously, this is an important topic to you, Minot. So please, wherever you stand on the issue, for us, for me, it doesn't matter. But get out and just be vocal about it. Be vocal in a proper way about it. Get out there. Use the proper channels. Get out there to City Council tonight, 5:30 p.m. So thanks for watching this episode. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Have a great rest of your day. If I can find my end card.
Uh-oh.